So yesterday, I gave you all the advice of creating art every single day. The topic of discussion was how to get into creating art. And I said the biggest thing is do every single day and never stop. That begs a second question though, a really pressing one. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff you're making. What should you make? And obviously, I'm sure nobody thinks this is going to be prescriptive advice, right? I'm not going to be able to come here and go, you should do a unicorn the first day, you should do an apple the second day, and then you should get real crazy with the cast. So, nobody's qualified to do that. Of course, your ideas need to come from yourself. However, in the process of creating something new every day, whether that be, writing, making music, whatever it may be, I would like to offer a little bit of guidance because I think it can be sort of a daunting thing. I think the first piece of advice I want to give here, maybe not even piece of advice, but just point I want to make, is that what you create every day doesn't need to be good. It doesn't even need to be finished. I mean, I know for me, it's a rule now that I have to create every day. It's been going on for years and years, sometimes in the form of these videos where I complete a canvas, sometimes I do a full image, sometimes I don't, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's terrible, most days it's really terrible, and so on, right? But for years now, I've created in some capacity every day. When I'm away, as I've been recently, it was doodling, right? Doodling, sketching. I have a little tiny Midori sketchbook that is probably this big that I travel with anywhere I go. I need it because if I don't have anything to go or do, I'll legitimately go crazy. I mean, this is real. I will kind of lose it a little bit if I don't have something to, when I'm away, doodle on. Even if it's just I'm away from everybody for an hour and I can get to a cafe, something like that, right? But I need something, right? So for me, it's doodling. And I know in the last couple months when I've been, or in the last more so month when I've been as busy as I've been, it's been small sketches that are never complete, never good, and will most likely end up nowhere, ever. They will never end up anywhere. But I did something, and I think that is the most important thing, right? It's understanding that just doing something is the most important thing. It can be terrible, it can be great, it can be, one day you'll make your favorite thing, and the next week after, you'll draw the construction of a skull, just kind of rough out a grid of it, and that'll be all you do, and that's great. You still did something. That's still, doing something, whether good, bad, or otherwise, is the single most important thing, right? I will stand on that. That is my belief. And I will honestly die on this hill because I think that the difference between somebody that makes something every day and something good once a week is insurmountable, right? Because I feel we kind of get the impression, especially from social media nowadays, that artistry is final products, right? That artistry is coming out with these final big things. I mean, especially I'd say the most visible form of art nowadays is unequivocally music, right? That's definitely the dominant prevailing art form. And I think music has given a lot of people the impression, these big rollouts, you complete something, you throw it out there, you come up with all these cool ways of doing it, you market it. It's kind of giving people the impression that's what art is, right? And that's, I think, a tragedy, because if you actually are making art and you're making, stuff that's interesting and good and, or rather trying to be interesting and good, trying to go a little bit above making 5-minute crafts, 90% of your work is going to be unfinished. It's going to be random things that you think are terrible, and most other people agree are actually terrible. They're genuinely bad things, but you made something, right? And that is the most important part. That's what I think 99% of creating is, and that's why I do believe what I believe, that you should do it every day, good, bad, or otherwise, right? But what are the caveats with that? Because you could do something every day, and you could do it from reference and still not learn too much about your own creativity. And that's really the goal of a lot of this, right? We can say that it's learning a craft, and it is in many cases, or we can say that it's about getting better at the very technical skills that come with art. But what is it really about past that? I believe it's about learning yourself and what you create, right? I do think that is the most important part of it, because I think without that, you kind of end up doing a lot of things other people can do. This is a big reason why I'm against working with references. I don't think that it's bad. First of all, I should definitely emphasize that. If you are somebody that primarily creates with references, I think that's fine. I still think somebody that creates stuff with references is always better than not creating at all, right? However, I do think that people, if you want to make stuff every day, I think it's important to just do it off your own mind, right? Part of this can completely be biased. I never learned in my life how to use a reference. I still cannot. But I think that learning how to make things based off other things is a useful skill, but can be a crutch if used wrong, which is why I'm against using them at all. I think it's much more valuable to come out with something random every, now and again that's maybe not that great, than a complete product that is a reference. This is a big belief of mine. Like, I think that this is honestly controversial, I guess. I feel like people might not agree with this. And I understand why, and I'm not saying it's like bad to use references when making things, but I do believe that learning how to use your own mind and just like throw something out there that didn't exist before is the magic of art. Like, at one point the magic of art was definitely rendering impressive images, right? Back when, before the camera, when it was all about very technical, realistic art, the magic of art was that you could render an image in a photorealistic style that was technically proficient. Nowadays, the magic of art is that you can do the opposite of that you can render something that never existed before, right? Which is why I think that's the more important thing to practice, personally. So that's why I'm against using reference, because I think that learning how to, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, create something that just did not exist a second ago is an insane skill. It's the skill in art, I believe. Which is why I think that is what you should be practicing more so than learning the proficiencies of making things off references. Once again, being a reference artist is very impressive. I could never do it in a million years. So maybe this take does come from there. Comes from a little bit of jealousy that I never did learn how to do that. But that's just what I think. Past that, there still remains the question here. I've said that I think that using reference as a crutch is bad. I've said that I think that you should create every day, whether it's good or bad. But I feel like a question still remains fairly unanswered here. What should you make? What is the goal? Like, what should you make? And I feel like with me having, this is kind of a pretentious outlook on things, right? Don't use references, and like, you gotta create every day to hone your vision. Like, I feel like this is sort of a pretentious outlook. So like, I feel like a lot of people would follow that up with like, create whatever you have to say, or find your vision, find your voice. And that's like what a lot of the traditional advice is out there, right? About art. It's like, you need to find your unique thing that you can say and that nobody else can, and then you must create based on that. And I'm kind of against that because, like, by proxy of being a person, you have a unique voice. Like, you just do. Nobody has the same experiences as you, right? So this kind of just goes back to more, less about what exactly to create and more about what I was saying yesterday about being honest in your execution of that creation. If you can have, if you have the ability, which is something that definitely comes from creating every day, to be honest in what you're making. Like, you can continue to make something new every day, and it's exactly what you want. You're not pulling any punches in what you're making, blah, blah, blah. I think that is your voice. Like, I think the idea of you need a vision, you need a voice is kind of bad. I think it's also kind of elitist. Like, I think, and I've fallen into this trap in the past for sure, that like, people get really good at analyzing art and talking about art and less good at making art. So they view it as a virtue to have your art say something profound or about the world the way it is. And it's great, but not a requirement, right? Like, you need to learn how to make art and put what you want into the art. It doesn't need to necessarily be something profound, and both those things need to be there. I guess I actually don't like the way I just worded that. Everything's profound in one way or another, right? But it doesn't need to be profound, I suppose, in the way that we traditionally think of it. Like, we think of something profound as like, oh, it's deep, or it has a commentary on XYZ. That, I think, is what a trap you need to avoid. Like, I think that part of being honest that's almost impossible is avoiding your predispositions of what you believe good art is, right? Like, oftentimes, and once again, I want to say as I'm here that I'm not above any of this. The reason I'm doing these sections of videos, going back and talking about some of these simpler topics, is because I'm still terrible at so many of these things, and I still, I want to get them out loud so I can learn to be better with them, right? But part of being honest that's so difficult in learning what to create is that you have an idea of what you think is cool in your head, and that is going to get into the art. For an example, I just watched Citizen Kane recently. When I'm making a video now, I might think, okay, I want to say this one thing, but then in the back of my mind I'll have this scene from Citizen Kane, and maybe that'll influence this one thing that I want to say. Where if I was being myself, I would have said it in my own way, instead of trying to mimic this thing that many people perceive as being good. This is a trap that people often fall into in art, right? They're making things based off of the consensus of what is good rather than what they want to make. And I think that's I think it's a tough balance, right? Because like, you want to learn what is good, for sure. You know, if you're studying film, it's important to watch Citizen Kane. It's considered one of the best films of all time for very good reason. Fantastic movie, by the way. But along with that, you also, you know, you're not Orson Welles. You're not going to make a movie as good as Citizen Kane your first try. So mimicking it isn't going to actually be productive at all. It's just going to make you somebody who's now mimicking Citizen Kane instead of learning your own voice a little bit better, right? I suppose this kind of goes back to the influence of reference that we were talking about before, which is why I would say that, like, removing a phrase I have that I use a lot is be pretentiously unpretentious. And I think that applies really well here, because I think that's kind of the whole core of what I'm trying to get at here, right? Removing any conception of what is good, what is bad when making art is the way, in my opinion, to make it honestly, right? I think that's what you need to do to be able to make exactly what you want to make. And if, you know, the perceptions of what is good and what is bad, yes, exist for a reason, and sometimes it's a great thing to copy or to take inspiration from. However, they are always changed by artists. Like, it's never, what is good and what is bad has never been changed by a critic going back and being like, oh, this movie that we found was actually really good and we never noticed that, right? It happens because an artist comes along, makes something new, and everybody goes, whoa, that is new and cool. And then they change the consensus of what is good, you know, the consensus subjectivity of what do we deem to be good art, right? Please don't take this as me saying your goal needs to be to change minds on what good art means. It simply means that good art is subjective, therefore everything you make is good, if you like it. That's what should matter, right? So I think a big part of this whole process is not being influenced by what people say is good, rather being influenced by what you believe it to be good, right? And creating purely based off that, right? What you think is cool. Sometimes, yeah, it will, you know, if you have a taste for stuff like Citizen Kane, yeah, 1,000,000%, you are going to mimic a classic film. You know, that's great. And that can be a shortcut to people perceiving you as good. But making something you earnestly believe in, not being influenced by that thing, is the most important part of what you're creating, right? So create earnestly what you want to create without any other influence. Like, and that's an impossible statement. This is a statement I struggle to do every day myself. It's one of the hardest parts of you know, making art at all. But to make something without saying, oh, this looks like X, Y, and Z, is what is going to separate you from everybody else. Because everybody's creating things based on what X, Y, and Z looks like. So you need to try and stand out in what you create every day. Which is why I say just make it. Make it bad, make it whatever. Draw the pigeon you see land near where you're sitting. Draw the toothbrush that you have that you're like, the handle's weirdly nice on this, you know? And draw it from your mind, draw it how you see it. Don't let anything else influence exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. Because that's how the best things come out. So, I suppose to try and put a button on this conversation that's gone in a million routes, it feels, except the one that we aim to have it go. What do you draw every day? What do you make every day when you're being an artist? I focus mainly on visual arts here, but, you know, kind of, if you can abstract the lesson to apply to things like music and so on, that's great too. I guess I probably should have covered that, but to answer the question, what do you create every day? Whatever you want, literally. Don't try and lean on crutches. Don't try and, you know, be something else. Whatever you want. That is my answer. That's my personal answer, and that's earnestly what I believe in. Sorry for the pause. For some reason, my camera just cut because an alarm went off. I overslept this morning, It's 9:45. I don't want to watch on. It's 9:45 p.m. right now. It's gonna go up really late tonight. I'm so sorry about this. If you're watching this like right after it comes out, I'm so sorry. But an alarm just went off on my phone and I overslept today, which is part of the reason it's out so late. And I guess I set my alarm this morning for 9:45 p.m. instead of a.m., which explains why I didn't wake up till noon today. It was 2 p.m. It was actually at 2 p.m. It wasn't noon. I don't know. This is the painting. Don't like it. I messed up the 3D-ness of the face of the mask, and I hate that. I hate the painting. It is bad, and we are not going to talk about it anymore. Go check it out over on Instagram. It'll be up later today, tomorrow. I don't know. I have no idea. Follow me places. Until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Seiss. This is Paint and Talk episode 243. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.